Welcome, fellow confidence crusaders, neuro nerds, and success equalizers. This is your podcast, Real Confidence. I'm your host, Alyssa DeVere, and I'll be sharing a bit of basic brain science, some surprising social secrets, and a touch of tough love. Why? Because I believe confidence is everyone's fundamental right and choice. So let's get to it. All right, my friends, sometimes I grab a guest applicant because I just think and have this gut feeling, as I always tell you, listen to your guts, that this is going to be fun, interesting, and valuable. And so today I'm bringing you Brady Foulk, who is a dog training expert. You're like, what? But here's what Brady said in his bio. He's a dedicated dog trainer with a passion for empowering puppies, dogs, and their owners to achieve greater success and harmony at home and around town. So I just know, Brady, we're going to have a fun talk, and I'm so glad you joined us today.
Yeah, I appreciate you having me here. I want your audience to know before we begin, we're going to be talking about dogs. So if you want your dog to listen a little bit better, I'm going to share some tips and tricks that'll help you quickly. But if you don't have a dog and you're here for your normal confidence boost, your neuroscience, nerdy stuff, right? I'm also here for you. And I'm excited to dive into this for the next 10, 15 minutes or so. We'll keep it nice and tight.
Well, I appreciate it, Brady, and it's hilarious that the dog thing is neuro, and I did go to a conference on neuro dog stuff, so we'll geek out a little bit
Oh,
about that
okay.
later. Yeah, but needless to say, let's roll back a little bit because
Okay.
you and I chatted, and obviously when I grabbed your application, come on the show, there's this element of when the owner is confident or not, how it affects the training of the dog and just the dog's reaction. So, if somebody is not confident, let's do the easier part. If they're not confident and I've been in dog training class, I've seen people like this where they're like, come, right? Like they're very timid about doing things with their dog. How does that affect the relationship? How does that affect the dog?
Yeah, that's a great question. Dogs are always feeding off this energy, and confidence could even be described more as a smell to dogs because when you're nervous, you're sweating and it releases a type of smell. When you're excited, you're sweating. When you're happy, you're sweating. It's all different. It smells different to dogs. And they even did tests. I won't dive into it, but dogs could tell when someone watched a scary movie and when someone watched a happy movie. So if you're over here stressing out a little bit, saying to yourself a story, I don't know what to do. I'm going to mess this up. I'm going to mess up my dog. Your dog is going to you're going to start sweating because you're getting nervous. Your dog's going to smell that and be like, oh, they're scared. I should be scared right now. And then they're going to switch to their fight or flight mode. Right. And so now you're both are in fight, flight, or freeze.
I knew this was going to be cool. I love this. My last book was Confidence is a Choice, but I guess my next book I have to write with you called Confidence is a Smell. So I never thought of it like that. That is brilliant. So we're giving off the signals to the dogs. Now, you also do a lot of work with parents and all kinds of different audiences, not just dog owners. And confidence is transmutable, right? We do give it off in visual cues, obviously in aroma cues now too. You're saying the dogs actually can interpret that, and so subsequently it triggers them to imitate that. Would that be a fair paraphrase?
They will mirror to the best of their ability, right? And sometimes it's not. Sometimes I can be very confident and a dog could still be scared, right? And so it's not always like that. But I believe confidence is a skill, and there's three ways to train a skill. You can condition it, you can shape it, or you can capture it, right? And I follow the same things for dog training with any skill that I do.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. Okay, so first and foremost, if we're confident, we have a better chance of giving that to the dog, of course. When you're training a dog, and I know we're going to talk about specific training things, but when you're training a dog, especially if it's your first time, um,
Mhm.
like what does confidence sound like, look like to convey that? Like if people are saying to yourself, I don't even understand what we're talking about at this point. What does that look like in terms of somebody who's trying to train a dog? Are they stern? Are they loud? How does that transmit?
Yeah, that's a great question. I believe there's three ways to lead. You can use intimidation, you could use bribes, and you can use inspiration or games, right? I follow the latter, games and inspiration. So And when I'm talking to my dog, I'm going to be just a neutral voice. I don't really raise my voice too much. If they're getting into something that's going to get them into a lot of trouble, I may raise my voice loud, but I'm mindful of the emotion behind it. Is
Mm.
it like an anger or is it just like a loud attention? Right. So that's important. And talking about getting skills for your confidence for your dogs, it comes through repetition. I think repetition is the mother of all skills, and you have to condition these things. And um, your dog has to become conscious of what you want them to do first, and then you need to give them clarity. And then through clarity, they get confidence. And once you're at confidence, then you can start adding challenges in like distractions or distance or duration. And that's the fourth step. And then the fifth step is you have a capability now. And this capability, if you've gone through these steps of you have consciousness, you just start showing your dog kind of what you want them to do. You give them clarity that there's rules of when they're supposed to do it, when they're not supposed to do it. And then that's how they build confidence.
Wow. I mean, again, my gut was right. This is
Uh-huh.
really fascinating. How do you know if your dog's confident? Is there something that they do?
Yeah, you can check out their body language a lot of the times, right? If you were to imagine a timid dog or a shy dog, what would you think of, right? Or even a timid or not confident person. Like if I said, I'll give you $1 million.
Well, it's funny because I got a new puppy a couple months ago, so that was also another reason to talk to you. But he's very easy with new people. He walks up, his tail is wagging. He just seems like he's like, "Hi, I'm welcome." Now, granted, I think a lot of dogs do that, but he's not hysterical. He's just happy to see you. He's not jumping, he's not barking. He's happy. And I don't know, maybe for me that's a confidence.
Hmm.
I would say, the dog obviously they're not cowering, they're not growling, they're not doing those kinds of things that are defensive. They're welcoming. I don't know. Did I get the
So
million?
those things, uh-huh. Yeah, those things would be the timid one or the shy or lacking confidence. If they're like growling or they're flighty, they're trying to run away, or sometimes dogs will get really sticky and they'll move really slow. And they're just like, they don't have confidence, right?
Yeah.
And so all that means is I think about it kindergarten through PhD, and maybe it means we gave them like a seventh or eighth grade problem, but they're really only in fourth grade. And we need to back down that problem and give them some more math rather than the pre-calc we were giving them. And that will give them more confidence because they'll be like, oh, I've done this before. I can do this, right? And then they start doing it. And then the next day, it's like an apple a day. You keep stacking on these days. And after doing it for 30 days, the dog's like, I know this game. Um, and one thing I'll do with them too is I'll give them pump fakes once I know they understand the word, like crate training, right? Like when I open the door, the dog has to stay there. I'll say ready, steady, bananas, and I'll say a word that's not their word to see if they're listening. And if they break, I know that they don't have clarity. They just think a sound means they're released. Or are they listening to what words I'm actually saying? So that's how you start testing confidence too.
You know, it, I love it. I love it. I love it. And as you were talking, so with this new puppy, his name is Porter. He's delicious and he's in the other room. My husband bought the game, like the games that you put on the floor, you put the food underneath and they have to do it, right? And it's been fascinating watching him figure them out. And there's days where, the new game, he'll be like, I'm not in the mood. Like he just doesn't, he gets frustrated, he walks away. But once he masters it, like you said, like you put it down, he knows exactly what to do. So like, is there a level where you can really read if the dog is feeling frustrated and really not into what you're trying to convey to them? Or like again, is there a tell? I mean, they can smell our confidence. How do we smell theirs?
Yeah, yeah. No, you can definitely tell. You'll tell because sometimes they'll shut down and they won't work with you anymore, and they'll just walk away and start smelling stuff. It means like they're lacking confidence. Some people are like, my dog's distracted. It's like you've given them too hard of a problem.
Hmm.
Um, and yet there's still sometimes I have those games too, like the spinner one or the ones where you have to flip open the lids, right? And there's moments to work through frustration. And those games are great to show your dog, like, I get it. There's challenges in life, and there's different levels of these games. There's easy, medium, hard. Um, and yet, if you continue working, like, there's a payoff at the end. And so we want to make sure that we're building that skill in our dog through different enrichment games. And you can do this, and you can wrap up a towel and do stuff, right? And I'm teaching my littlest puppy how to ride a skateboard. She's 8 months old, and we're riding a skateboard, right? And it was hard for her at first, right? It was challenging, but I started off with just a blanket. I taught her how to stand on a blanket. And then I got a flat skateboard with no wheels, and she was just standing on that. And then I put that on top of something so it didn't move at all. And so, but it was still elevated. And I took her through all these different steps. So now she's riding a normal skateboard, and we can go down hills now.
That's cool.
But we went through a sequence, right?
Yeah. Well, I mean, and that's what you would do. I mean, if we were smart, we would do that with humans too, right? Like, don't just throw them on a skateboard, give them a like progression to get there. It's very good. So I kind of tempted you before, and possibly some of the audience. I did go to a brain science, like the future brain science, the people who are really doing the out there research not too long ago. And
nice.
They were talking about some of the brain waves that people are studying that are above all the ones that have been known so far, above the alphas and betas and everything, that allow humans to make an instant detection, basically, if there's somebody that you connect with, like in an emotional way. And they proved it, they've shown it, and it's amazing. And then at the end of the conference, there was another woman who got up, one of the scientists, and she says, I've been studying this between dogs and people. And so I was, a big duh, I think, in some ways, where a dog can detect if they connect with you. I mean, I think they knew it intuitively, but I find it fascinating that dogs know when somebody is not confident around them. My mother-in-law being the classic case, terrified, and all the dog wants to do is make her like him. And I'm just wondering, you have a comment on that? Like, do you think, first of all, that they know it, and second is like, why do they do that?
Yeah, it's interesting, right? Because I worked with abused farm animals, pigs and turkeys and cows and chickens, right? All these different animals. And I worked with this one pig, Cashew, for a year. She wanted nothing to do with me, right? She hated me. She hated other pigs. She hated people, right? She was severely abused, right? So I started off training. I would just wave, and then I'd toss some popcorn to her. She loves popcorn. And then I would wave, and then I'd toss some popcorn, and then I'd walk away, and I'd give her some space. And then I just allowed her to build trust with me. She loves me now. I've taught her how to paint. She's raised over $10,000 for this nonprofit through selling her paintings. She's so good at it now. It's her favorite thing to do. Like, you pull out the paintbrushes and her tail just starts going and going and going, right? So I believe that there's some people out there that they just go into life. They don't want new friends, right? And me personally, when I meet someone, I'm already your friend. There's no question in me of like, are they gonna am I going to like them? Like, you may have a question, are you gonna like me? But I already know I like you, right? It just saves so much time. And some dogs are like that. Now, it's great when those dogs are like that because they can break a lot of
phobia, right?
Stories in people's heads, right? Like, if they're like, oh, dogs are mean, and then you meet a very friendly dog, you're like, oh wow, this is the coolest dog ever, right? But dogs also pick up on if this person's scared. That study I was telling you, the dogs who smelled the scared smell from the movie, some of them wouldn't go back into the room because they're like, that person is like way too scary. I hate that. Right? Some dogs stayed, but it kind of just depends on the dog too. And I find it very interesting that there's this intuitive connection between dogs and people that kind of just like, it's fate almost, serendipitous.
Yeah. Well, again, they're saying it's actually a brainwave. So I think, more research to come, and I'm excited about it. But it is kind of humorous, I will admit, to watch, my dogs, let alone any dogs, try and befriend somebody who's terrified of them. And we say they're trying to be good Samaritans, but it's not always easy with people. All right, so here's what we're going to do. Take a really quick break because I can't wait to get back on with you. And I want you to kind of give some best tips for people who are not feeling so confident about training their dogs and building a relationship, something that you can offer to them that they can do right away and get started. And then we'll, of course, give contact information. So hang in there, my friends. We're going to be right back with Brady. Want to level up your confidence, your career, maybe even your coaching? Well, then head over to AmericanConfidenceInstitute.com. E-classes are there, as well as our coaching certification program, and you don't need any coaching experience to do it. However, if you are an experienced coach, you can get ICF and SHRM continuing credit. It's fast and easy. If you work in an organization, consider bringing in a kick-ass keynote or a uniquely engaging workshop. We also have team learning programs, and they all apply to both your personal and professional life, which makes them really special. They're great for ERGs, the leaders, the member programming, or really any type of professional learning and development in your organization. So give us a holler at www.americanconfidenceinstitute.com. I love talking dogs. Dogs, coffee, you name it. Dogs, great. I love it. Love it, love it, love it. Brady Foulk, thank you for being here today. Let's talk about people who are out there going, maybe they have a dog or they're thinking of getting a dog and they're like, I'm not sure I can train it, not sure I can build that relationship. Give them some dog love tips, please.
Yeah, I'll take you guys through like my first game I play with every person. And we address a big problem for some people. When people knock on the door, what does the dogs do? Everyone runs to the door, or like kind of what happens? And all that is a conditioned response, right? That's been operantly conditioned to there's pleasurable things coming there. And so the first thing that we do is we start training. How do you overcome that, right? People are like, what do I do? And we got to train an incompatible behavior. And that's where my brain's always going. Instead of saying, stop jumping, stop barking, it's like, what's incompatible with barking or running to the door? Running to your bed and laying down, right? You can't do this two things at the same time. It's like being fearful and grateful at the same time. Same kind of idea. So what I do with the dog is first, and I teach the owner just the importance of sequence. If you're baking a cake and you have all the ingredients and you just put everything in a bowl, does it look like a cake at the end?
Usually not.
Usually not, right? There's a recipe to follow. So in dog training, it's called the ABCs. All it is antecedent, which is a fancy word for trigger, and then behavior and consequence, meaning does something good or bad follow it? Does the dog want to repeat the behavior? And so I'll have the owner put their hand in the air and wave it, and then say search, and then reach in the bowl, and then toss a treat. And then the dog will eat it. And then they wave their hand and say search, and then they reach in the bowl and toss the treat. So we're training the dog to value for us, not value for the food. It's not a bribe. It's like, look at us. You looked at us, great. Now I'm going to reward you by pulling out the food and tossing it on the ground for you to search, right? Super duper easy game. Next thing I do is like, now that you've understand that, I take two beds and I put them on either sides of the room, and I'll knock on the wall, and then I'll run over to a bed and I'll say search, and I'll drop a treat on the bed. And then I'll knock on the wall and I'll run over to the other bed and I'll say search, and I'll drop the treat on. The reason why this works is because dogs are prey animals. They like to chase things naturally. So I'm the prey. We're giving them a target to target, and they're understanding this search word now because we just trained that, and they're getting rewarded for it. And we're associating subconsciously when they hear a knock, they go run to their bed instead of the front door. So that is how you start conditioning. And I mentioned you can condition, you can shape, and you can capture behavior. So now the shaping comes in, and shaping is this idea that humans are doing anything either to gain pleasure or to avoid pain. Like that's why I believe you do anything in life, and dogs are operating on the same premise. So then you have a friend come over and you warn them what you're going to do. You have them knock on the door, and then you open the door, right? If you've done enough conditioning and your dog has clarity, they should run to their bed. But if they don't, they run to the door, then you just shut the door on your friend and the friend goes back outside. Now the dog doesn't get the good thing anymore. So now it's painful to the dog. They're like, oh, every time I run to the door, the person's come, and now the door shuts and the person leaves. And then you knock on the wall again and the dog runs to their bed, and then the door opens. Oh, what? Now the person's here when the door opens, and then the dog breaks and they run to the door, and then the person steps back outside and you shut the door, and the dog's like, why did they do that? Right? And then you're like, what were we supposed to be doing? And then the dog's like, oh, I know. And then they run back to their bed, and then you open the door, right? And so now you got this fun little tennis match going on where you don't got to yell at the dog. You don't got to intimidate. You don't got to bribe. The dog is making choices on their own based on what they find valuable. And you're communicating very clearly to them. And you've conditioned them before. So it's not like you're just throwing them out there and being like, figure it out. It's like, no, we've done 100 repetitions of running back and forth to the beds and knocking. And now we're going to add in this person and some more pain or pleasure and associate all of this together. So that's the first game I take people through on day one. And it just like kind of blows their mind of like, Wow, it's so easy.
Well, it's easy when you say it. I mean, to do it, right? You gotta just do it. And I love it. I was like taking notes, and at the same time, I'm like, Brady, please tell me you have this written down somewhere or some resources that I can dig into. What stuff on your website, stuff where?
Yeah, on my Instagram page, I share a bunch of stuff on my Instagram, tips and tricks. And then if you DM me Dream Dog, I can send you a PDF with some games you can play with your dog,
Oh, I love it. And the Instagram.
including this one.
Yeah, I love it. Instagram handle. How do people find you on Insta?
Yeah, it's N is in Nancy, D is in Drew, dog training. So it's New Direction Dog Training, but it's ND Dog Training.
Beautiful. This is a topic obviously close to my heart, and you are such a breath of fresh air in the dog training space. So thank you for sharing some of that wisdom and ideas and resources and connection. I just love it. Love it, love it, love it. A neuro dog lover. I mean, I don't know if it fits in my bio, but I might have to add that.
Yeah, I'm a neuroencoding specialist dog trainer.
Love it. I love it. Thank you so
All
much.
we're doing is creating anchors.
Yeah, all we're doing. That's a big deal, but needless to say, you're doing it well, and I appreciate you sharing some of that with the listeners today.
Yeah, my pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Before we totally wrap up, I want to let you know that full transcripts and show notes for this and other Real Confidence episodes can be found on www.americanconfidenceinstitute.com/podcast. I also want to remind you once again that the best way to get confidence is to give it to others, and you can do it just by liking and sharing this episode on your preferred podcast and social media channels. You can even give me some confidence by noting topics you'd like me to consider for the future. So for now, this is Alyssa DeVere. Thank you for helping to bring more confidence to the world. Master editing done by Ben Weinstein with original music performed and composed by Jeff Mitchell. Real Confidence is a production of American Confidence Institute. All rights reserved.